All right, welcome into the Garbage Goal podcast powered by Orlando Lacrosse Report. I'm Patrick Moore along with Colin Turner, and you have found yourself falling into episode 0 of the Garbage Goal podcast because
good luck and God bless you.
Yes, we are just now starting and firing this thing up and trying to actually kind of figure out what it's going to be. So we want you to come along with the ride with us as we talk about Florida lacrosse, North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida, all things lacrosse, college, high school, boys and men's lacrosse, and super excited about having you along with us on this ride, this journey together, and trying to talk and learn a little bit more about the sport that we all enjoy and love. And so we just thought it'd be fun to hop on here as we kind of roll this and ramp this thing up, Colin, and sort of to our small but hopefully growing audience that's going to be involved in this journey in this Garbage Goal podcast, to just sort of introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about what we want this to be, and also for us to say, hey, this is a platform for you lacrosse fans, you parents, you coaches, you players. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we can bring to the table to entertain you, to teach you, that you can teach us, and vice versa. And so as we sort of dig into this, I would really like because I have zero lacrosse experience in terms of actually playing the game. I fell in love with it through my kids. You actually played the game, and you grew up in Florida. You played in Florida, and man, what an amazing 20-something years it's been of the game of lacrosse. Really, in my opinion, probably the fastest growing sport in the state of Florida right now. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's again, go back to what you were saying, what this podcast is. This is about as much stats as we're going to talk about. There's not a lot of breakdown we're going to give you. This is not what that's going to be about, but more or less what we see and how things are going, and where lacrosse has come from when I started back in '97 to where it is today is absolutely astronomical. Having Lake Mary be, the first, public school here in the Central Florida area to win the state championship, even though I still count mine from, 2000 when there was four teams playing, but hey, we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, it does count. It does count.
It counts.
So yeah, it's been amazing to see how far it's come.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is important to us. That there's some great resources in Florida that talk a lot about high school and college lacrosse. Of course, the folks at Florida Lacrosse News, a great job of really being a little more analytical and I would say more present the actual news of lacrosse in the state. You've got the Tampa Lacrosse Report. I am the genius behind the Orlando Lacrosse Report, which basically just consists of me. Bombshell.
Patrick
Yes,
it's like who it is.
It's the unmasking of Spider-Man takes the mask off. It's basically just me reposting all the high school teams' content and sharing some scores, which is fine. It's just fun for me. But, one of the things, the reason I started that whole Orlando Lacrosse Report Instagram account, which is now turned into a TikTok account and even a Facebook account, is I just really wanted to expose people and give some notoriety to these high school programs, because lacrosse is, it's unbelievable. To me, it's like when I was in high school, because I grew up in Orlando as well, didn't play lacrosse, but played basketball and soccer, golf and all that. But, the growth of the game, especially from the private schools now into the public school arena, is unbelievable. And the talent is just getting better and better. And, we do still have a tiered system right now in that we have some top public school teams that are kind of dominating. We have some top private schools that are dominating, but that is slowly starting to turn the corner. And I think it will continue to do so over the next, 5 to 10 years. But what we want to do is we want to highlight those teams too. We don't want to just talk about the Lake Marys and the St. Andrews and the Lake Highlands and the Winter Parks, and the Ponte Vedras, the Bowls, all these great schools, which are phenomenal lacrosse schools. We want to talk about the programs that are on the up and coming, right? I know I talk about them all the time, but I love the energy coming out of Lake Nona. Those guys are working hard to build a program. Oviedo and Haggerty have, over the years, put together some really good teams. And, of course, the history of Lake Brantley, with the Bernhardt brothers. And there's just all these storylines that we hope to tell through the Garbage Goal podcast that we can share with you. And, to that note, speaking back to when you were playing, it's got to be interesting how it has. You kind of see a little ebb and flow of some of these teams, especially in Central Florida, because that's the teams we really know, right? Because West Orange had a run, Lake Highlands had some runs. When you were playing and after you played, what was that environment like as you were following lacrosse early in Florida?
It's a whole different ball game. And again, we joke around about the 99 state championship at Winter Park High School. Obviously, 21-0. We played anyone and everyone that was coming out of Winter Park. But when you go back to the original, I think it was 8 teams. You've got Lake Brantley, Lyman, Winter Park, Oviedo. Who am I forgetting? There's 2 or 3 more that were in there. But it was a small niche groups. And it's still the same programs we're talking about today because they're supported so much by their youth programs. But to talk about Winter Springs, like as a lacrosse program, I remember when I was graduating, they were coming on, and they were a powerhouse in the Central Florida area when they were coming in. Winter Park has had their ups and downs. Lake Mary's had their ups and downs. Bishop Moore has surged, and Lake Highland being a power here in Orlando. Steinbrenner down in the Tampa area is now becoming a noise. Jupiter High School, which was the first public school to actually compete against the privates before they split them into 1A and 2A. And then you go all the way into Tallahassee with McLean. You've got Ponte Vedra, which is a newer school in that area, and they've won multiple state championships, competed for multiple state championships. And now that we've seen the split off of that, and then you get lacrosse all the way into the Panhandle, all the way down to the Keys. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to see how many programs and how competitive they are, but also to see how many players that we're seeing that will pop up at an East River and be a dominating player for an East River team that has their struggles of getting enough people in there and growing their program and holding on to coaches. But to see teams like that in Edgewater, to have a couple good players coming through, it's great for the sport. And you got to look at all the people that are putting in time for the youth programs. It is anyone that's in sports in general, it's not just lacrosse, but soccer, basketball, baseball. It's a passion to be able to coach your kids and to see what these youth programs are doing and supporting the high school. It's the reason we are who we are, and the reason that those schools are able to continue to thrive for sure.
Well, a couple other things that I think we want to make sure that we're going to touch on as this podcast continues to evolve here at the Garbage Gold Podcast is that we also want to talk a little bit about some of the big names that have come through Florida, right? And we'll have some of those guys on this program. In like a quick list of those guys would be the Sergio Salcido, right, from Winter Park, who was an All-American at Syracuse, who has an amazing story. The Bernhardt brothers, who everybody knows and everybody loves, all went through Maryland and have had great success. Actually, I think they're all coaching at Maryland now. I think Jared's even there. They're all there, I think, at the same time now. They've had incredible careers. There's been multiple names. We have guys now, even in the last couple of years, from the Orlando area that are going to Division I programs and having success, and we'll talk about those guys. The other 2 things that I definitely want to cover in the Garbage Gold podcast is going to be talking a little bit about travel and club lacrosse and what that looks like, because I would imagine versus what you saw growing up, and even in the last 5 or 6 years, the explosive nature of club and travel lacrosse, and then just that last piece is college lacrosse, and that's the part I think is almost like the hidden gem of Florida. Is the Division II lacrosse in Florida is right now it's insane. It's so good. And so, you've got Rollins, you've got Florida Southern, you've got Tampa, who are all 3 competing for national championships this past spring, who are all loaded again. You've got up-and-coming programs, that are trying to build with Embry-Riddle. You got Flagler, who's a 2-year-old Division II program. You have all these things happening. St. Leo's, can't forget them. And Florida Tech. It's unbelievable. So we're definitely going to touch on the college expansion, especially Division II. And then the last little kind of weird one-off is that one Division I school that we have in Florida, Jacksonville University, which is the only men's Division I program in the whole state, which is just crazy to me.
It's nuts to think about it.
It's crazy. And you talk about a competitive recruiting advantage. I always joke that the coaches at JU just take their recruits to the beach in February and go, hey, everybody's in shorts and bathing suits. Come to school here and play lacrosse instead of going to Philadelphia and sitting in the snow. It's such
a hard sell to show people at the beach of Jacksonville and not be up in the snow. Yeah, in Maryland and in New York and upstate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So So there's all these little components that, if you're new to lacrosse, or maybe you've been in lacrosse in Florida, been around it as a parent, a coach, player, or just a fan, maybe you haven't thought about those different angles. And so as Colin and I have been talking about this podcast, we've been talking about what do we cover that's fun, but is also kind of like uncovering these little hidden gems of lacrosse in Florida and telling the story of what has been, what it is, and kind of where it's going. And that's another thing too, is, man, like, where do you see Florida lacrosse going? I mean, I think it's like, with the amount of kids and the athletes we have, I think it's just going to continue to take off.
You foster the right relationship, you foster the right practice and the thought process and how you're going to go. It could go anywhere it wants to go. I mean, you look at college football, people come to Florida for one reason, they go to Texas for a reason, they go to California. The athletes are here, right? I go back to when we, in 99, or again, when there was no one playing, we didn't know how fast the ball moved up north until we played some northern teams, and it would fly around. But how physical the Florida athletes were, they didn't know how to deal with that either. And now you start to get the skill. You've got a lot of coaches that have come in, a lot of very tenured coaches now in the state of Florida that are teaching it the right way, that are growing it. And you've got kids. Again, I didn't pick up a lacrosse stick until I was in 8th grade, and that was normal because there was nothing for us. Earl Kirkley, a long time ago, was the first guy to start a youth lacrosse program here in our city in Winter Park. But again, that didn't start till 5th grade. My son's playing in the youth lacrosse league along with a lot of the other dads that are coaches, and they start when they're 2 or 3 years old now. So you put some of this Florida humidity and sweat and athleticism into that, and again, that's not my son, but maybe it's somebody else's. And I mean, it's crazy where you can see the state of Florida going. Not to mention that over the years of COVID, the amount of people that have flooded our state from other places that are going to come with a lacrosse background, they're going to show up on some of these fields. It's only going to get better, and that's what's exciting about it, is seeing some of these kids and the dedication they put into it and see where they go, for sure.
Well, that's going to be the shift in Florida lacrosse, and that'll be probably a whole show in and of itself, or multiple shows, is the transition of people that grew up playing lacrosse. I always joke, people, the guys that are born, kids that are born in Long Island and New York and, those hotbeds, they come out of the womb and they're handed a lacrosse stick right out of the womb, right? So, and I think there's actually a hospital somewhere in Long Island. They actually do that. I think they give the babies a small stick when they come out, that or a hockey stick, something like that.
Yeah.
But regardless, you get the idea. But now you have these guys that are grandfathers or fathers like us, or even young guys who played in college that have moved down to Florida for whatever reason, and now they're going, hey, I'm going to coach my kid, or I'm going to coach this team, or I'm going to help get a program started. We've seen that with the club lacrosse for sure, right? A couple of people figured that out early on. Like, we got to get down there and we got to get these athletes and get sticks in their hands with, you got the Sweet Lax, you have the True Lacrosse, you got FLC, you have, Eclipse is down here now. Team 91 is kind of in now.
LCO has been here forever in the state of Florida, and they're only getting stronger and bigger with the coaches they're bringing in. It's awesome.
Yeah, so that's another angle with the Garbage Goal podcast that we can dig into. That's where we need to get some of these old timers in here that have made Orlando and Central Florida their home, and talk to them about that.
You just got to get the bleep button ready. However that works.
Babe, I can have Gus stand behind me, my high school kid. He can yell beep in between. But hey, that's what No, but I mean, that's what we want. We want for the Garbage Goal podcast. We want this to be fun. We want it to be energetic. We want it to be informative. And we want to learn a little bit more about, the teams, the coaches, the players, and share some funny stories, share some neat stories, and kind of talk about where the progression of this game is going to go as we continue to cover, Central Florida and the whole state of Florida with lacrosse. And who knows where this thing will go. We might end up covering lacrosse in Alabama. I don't even know if they have lacrosse in Alabama.
They do. We played a team from there.
They do, actually. I know a family their son played. I think they're kind of like Winter Park was back in '99. There's only 6 teams. So, but they're working on it. They're working on it.
I bet you that one really good team is doing very well in Alabama. That's probably winning everything,
I would imagine so. It's probably Hoover or somebody like that.
Yeah,
so,
without a doubt. And like you're saying, the best thing is we look at lacrosse as a conversation, and that's really what we're hoping to make this out of. My favorite thing to do in the almost 11 years that I've been coaching, which is nothing with some of these tenured coaches that have been out there, is having conversations about what they see about the game, how they look at the game, how they've learned, who they've learned, and where they see it going. There's so many dedicated coaches that are out there and parents that have a story to tell, and I'm excited to dig into it. And especially the referees. That's what I'm excited to get a couple of the zebras in here and have a conversation.
Yes.
Because that's a whole different convo. So
I will say I may or may not have had an offline conversation with a referee who did not agree to come on the podcast, but I asked them if they would let me just blur their face out. So I was gonna get I was just gonna print one and have him stick it on his forehead and see if we could try and change his voice and see if we can't. Unfortunately, I would imagine that ref probably knows a few stories about me at some different games. So I've been known to get a little wound up, and I apologize for that. But anyhow,
no, you don't.
Yeah, I don't. But we got so much more coming here on the Garbage Gold Podcast. We're super excited that you tuned in and that you're going to be joining us along. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to be on YouTube, TikTok, and on Apple Play or on Apple Podcast. And give us your feedback. Leave your comments. Tell us what you think. If we stink, we already know it, so it won't hurt our feelings. If you think we're great, tell us, because we probably need a little pump. We're both in sales, so we get defeated get rejected all day. So we would appreciate a little positive feedback. But thanks for tuning in to episode 0 of the Garbage Gold Podcast, powered by Orlando Lacrosse Report. I'm Patrick, and for Colin, we'll see you next time.